What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Today, I want to talk a little bit of AK action because I was fortunate enough to get my hands on one of these Dissident Arms Defector 5.56 rifles. If you follow the Dissident Arms page, there's enough porn of these things to make anybody weak in the knees for an AK. But I don't know that there's a lot of information out there on them. Not very many people talking about them publicly, and wanted to change that today. A little bit contemporary. I've had it for I would say a little while now, but haven't really gotten some time under the hood until I started preparing for the 2025 season. I would say my real interest in this gun, aside from it just being a cool gun, was after PCSL Nationals last fall. I started to think that this might be a really fun and competitive carbine for PCSL competition, because that format is so fast-paced and agile that I was looking for something a little bit more trim and faster handling than what I shot last year. Now, whether that takes the form of a different configuration of AR-15 or this, that's debatable. But what I think is interesting about this, and we'll get into it, is how the reloading function of it works. And in PCSL, you are gonna reload on the clock, and so that has me intrigued about it. But before that, really had it on my radar to shoot this at a match that got canceled for this spring, and then leading up to that, Battle for the South went from a 3-gun match to a 2-gun match in the 2025 season. So it's the first time it was a 2-gun match, and one of the divisions they were recognizing was essentially an open AK division. Now, I really believe that the sport is healthiest and most sustainable if there's more than one way to play. So yeah, I could just shoot the competition open division, like Adam Reiser wants me to, but frankly don't find that interesting, and I wanted to explore some of the other formats. So I thought I would have a perfect chance to run this thing and get you guys a solid opinion on it if you are looking at speccing one of these out or getting into one of these. So let's get into it there a little bit. Now, the AK community is, well, they're their own thing. They're not cut from the same cloth as most of the 3-gun competitor folks are. All right, so a race AK is something that's kind of, well, other than this one, I don't know that it's even really a thing, unless you're kind of building it yourself. Most of those guys, my perception of most of those guys, they're either hardcore traditionalists, right? They want the original variants of various forms of rifles, similar to how, like, I would claim myself to be on 1911s. All right, I kind of like the more original designs of some of those fighting pistols in the late 80s, 90s, early 2000s era of that pistol, more so than what just came out this year at SHOT Show. Not this year in particular, but everybody kind of comes up with their own variation every year. I like kind of more the traditional version of it, and I would say most AK guys fall into that category as well. They want original Bulgarian or original, I don't even know the variants. I will probably insult someone to try and pull them out of my ass, so I won't. But something like this is not usually what they're going for. Or on the other hand, folks are trying to maybe make a contemporary fighting rifle out of an AK pattern. So, and that might be more similar to this, in that they want to use an AK pattern rifle, but they want AR-15-esque features. Like they want a free float handguard. They want to interface with optics properly. They want better triggers. They want to maybe refine the reloading process here. This is a lot closer version of that. And then I would say we took it up even another level in that this one, I would say, know Mike and Lan from Dissident. They're competitors just like me, so they want to make essentially the race car version of a Kalashnikov rifle. And as of 2025, the Defector is their best foot forward on that. So I'm going to run it down for you here a little bit, just so you can see what I have, maybe see what some of these features look like, things to think about when you're configuring yours. To my knowledge, it is available in 7.62 and 5.56. This one is a 5.56. Yes, a 5.56, not a 5.45. This one's 5.56. I believe it's available in most popular calibers for the AK. 5.45 is kind of gone by the wayside now that they made it harder to import, which made it more expensive, which basically took away the reason most people shoot it. I actually have one of the oldest Dissident Arms AKs. It is the first gun that I ever won, and the first one they ever put on a prize table at the old what was that? I'm drawing a blank. Task Force Dagger. At the original Task Force Dagger matches, it was laying on the table. That is actually how I met Mike and Lan. I picked up their gun off the table, and the decision was literally, it was laying next to a very stripped down like DPMS or a Bushmaster AR-15 that I definitely wasn't going to use. And the thought was literally, don't have an AK, so I'll grab one of these. And that was how I met them. I actually won a match with that rifle too several years ago when Strategic Match Design was doing a carbine series. So I have a bit of history with these things, even though I don't really shoot them a whole lot. That one is in 5.45. I actually loaded the mags and shipped it to shoot an AK match. I believe, I'm not remembering which one it was, but there's going to be an AK match, like one of the ones, it wasn't Red October, but there's going to be an AK match in Vegas. I shipped it there, and then COVID happened. And I think the mags are still loaded for that. We never actually shot the match, and that was the last time I really set that gun up to use. But got this one now, and it's a bit more contemporary to use for match conditions. The ammo is a lot easier to get, obviously. It's in a little bit more competition-friendly configuration, obviously. So this is probably what I'm looking to use for AK competitions right now, going forward. And so what do we have here? All right, like I say, Dissident Arms Defector. On the front here, I elected for, I forget which one this is, but this is a JMac, I believe, compensator. The reason I picked this one is because I knew I was going to shoot it in competition, so I wanted a compensator, and I have dead air pattern suppressors, both personally and access to, so I wanted the dead air pattern, the chemo pattern suppressor host interface on the front there, so I picked that. This one's a 14.5, so that one is pinned and welded on there, which is a bit of my conundrum shooting this for PCSL, because I would want to shoot this in the practical division. That is not a practical legal compensator on the end there, so I would need some kind of flash can to do that, but that's my own dilemma. Barrel wise, I'm not sure. I mean, Dissident stuff is all pretty top shelf in terms of AK stuff. How does it shoot? So I shot with match ammo and this gun. Originally, I was a little bit disappointed in how it shot. I was also using the optic mount incorrectly, partially there. So that was partially my fault. But as I laid some copper in and broke this barrel in, it shoots now, I would say, acceptable. All right. So without getting too, I don't really get down into the weeds into shooting groups, but in zeroing and getting this all set up from a bench, probably a improvised bench position, but shooting it from a bench, as well as you can shoot it from a bench with, 30 round mags. I get about 2 MOA out of this gun, shooting match ammo, shooting 75 grain Hornady match ammo, and I've tried a few others as well, and that's about what I get. So I get about 2 inches at 100 yards, which in this day and age sounds kind of shitty, but realistically, I think this is probably shooting as good as what most people are shooting in competition or for serious personal use. All right. That's not to say people who are winning in competition. I would say they are shooting rifles that are more accurate than this. And I would not say that this is accurate on that level. But for what most of y'all are bringing out to a match on any given Saturday or to a multi-day, regional or national event, I would say this is shooting on par with those if you're using quality ammo. And that's really the trap in a lot of AK stuff, when people lay down kind of their expectations or maybe even some of the lore around AKs that they're not that accurate. Keep in mind the ammunition that they're using. These guns can only be as accurate and consistent as the ammunition you use. If you feed them match grade ammo, they shoot pretty decent. Certainly decent enough for what we're doing here in, like I'm talking about PCSL or two gun, this 2-gun match, Battle for the South. They kind of laid down some caveats that the targets were going to be a little bit bigger than we would expect at a 3-gun match. So a 3-gun match, anything 4 MOA, anything 4 MOA or larger is fair game. I think they were saying for this match, they were going for a little bit more like 6 or 8 MOA. All right. So the larger targets at longer distances were more like full-size IPSC torsos. All right, so a totally doable target for a carbine of somewhat reasonable and consistent accuracy, which I would say this is. So like I say, when I benched it right before the match, testing the ammo I was going to shoot the match, I got about bang on 2 MOA, and I would say that's very comparable from what you're actually going to get from an AR-15 in the $1,000 to $1,500 range. All right, I'm just not naming names, but like, yes, the big ones. All right, unless you're paying close to $2,000 for an AR-15, you're not going to get more accurate than this. Now, to get more accurate than this, I think that's somewhat hostage to what the AK market is kind of fostering. Also, most AK users don't have high accuracy expectations for their guns, or they're not willing to pay for it, or there aren't enough of them out there that manufacturers are actually making high quality barrels. All right, Proof Research, Criterion, JP, they're not making match grade AK barrels because not enough people would buy them. All right, so it's not as easy as it is in the AR side of the world to say, well, I want a match grade barrel, so throw that in there while you're at it. That's just kind of not how it works in AKs. Wherever they get these barrels, I would imagine these are the best ones they could get, and I would say it's pretty decent. But if you're expecting minute or sub-minute, I don't know that it does that, and I don't know that they would tell you it does that. It's pretty accurate for an AK, but you got to throw that caveat in there that it's kind of as accurate as this system can be with the parts that are currently available to make these. As race AKs maybe get more popular, maybe we see more parts in the future, but as it is today, that's what it is accuracy-wise. The other thing that's really interesting about this gun is the optic mounting system, and that's really a challenge on Kalashnikovs because this whole top cover here is essentially just a piece of sheet metal, so there's nothing really solid to mount contemporary optics to. So there's a few ways guys go about that. A lot of times they will attach some kind of rail interface to the side here, and then it comes up over the top. I don't really have any experience with those, but looks pretty janky. Not just from like an aesthetic standpoint, it's just as an optics person, I have lots of questions about how functional that part is, and I'm sure they're okay. But what what intrigued me about this one is they actually have an integrated optic interface here. And so this one is made by Saberworks. All right, so they use Saberworks for theirs. So like you would get on a KL12 on the shotgun, it's mounted up here by, this is the gas block, so I guess I would call this the trunnion. My Kalashnikov terminology is probably off. But up here by the receiver, it is hard mounted to the trunnion. And then essentially it does the inverse of what it does on an AR-15, and it cantilevers over the back of the receiver. All right, so if I take the dust cover off there, you can kind of see how it floats over the back there, and it's still solidly mounted even when I take all this stuff off here. So I think that is a pretty cool way to mount optic accessories onto a Kalashnikov. Obviously I do a lot of scope stuff, both professionally and in competition, so I configured this one with a scope mount. But as I played with this a little bit more, like if I use it in PCSL, I'm probably going to mount a red dot on it. So I actually got the Picatinny rail adapter here as well. And what's cool about this is essentially you have a quasi quick release interchange system for optics. So 2 set screws, which are a pain in the ass to get to, and they give you a special tool to get in there, a modified Allen wrench to get in there. But you loosen those 2 set screws that are right here underneath the objective lens, and then this pin will drift out of here. It's a ball detent pin, which you might be able to, yeah, you see the ball detent right there. All right, so there's a ball detent pin. This whole thing comes off. You can slide on a whole other configured optic, and you can quickly reconfigure this thing back and forth between different optics. How close it returns to 0? I don't know. I would say it's probably pretty close, maybe. Your mileage may vary on that, and I would definitely test that. I haven't had a chance to test that yet, but it is interchangeable on some level, and if I was doing anything I cared about with it, I would check 0 no matter what. But a solid way to mount optics to a Kalashnikov rifle is the first big win. And then it being modular, that you could configure this with multiple different types of optics, I think that's super cool, and something you could certainly expect, or at least get some value out of in investing in a rifle like this. Comes stock with a K&S piston. If you're racing AKs, you're probably familiar with the adjustable piston system for Kalashnikovs. It's adjusted right there on the top there. Essentially this part spins and you open and close the valve. This is a match's worth of shooting, and it wasn't even that close or that clean when I left for the match, to give you an idea, but about 300 rounds of shooting on that. Not that that's a exorbitant number of rounds. I'm just give you an idea of how dirty it gets when you use it. When I first got it, at first I just shot it, but then started playing around with, well, how dialed in could I get it? You know, being a competitively minded shooter, I mean, obviously I'm going to try and dial down the recoil impulse on that. So if I was really going to try and compete in a division against AR-15s, I wanted to tune quite a bit out of it to get it super flat. But yeah, to get the recoils as manageable as possible, when that's not really a characteristic that is designed into most AKs. So the fact that it comes with a K&S piston right out the gate for you to tune it is pretty sweet. And I weaned it out probably 6 to 8 clicks from where it was when I got it. So that tamed it down quite a bit. I could probably tune some more out of it, and the only reason I didn't right off the bat is, one, I was setting it at a very cold time of year. So I live in the upper Midwest. Ammunition gases differently in the winter than it does in the summer. So I didn't want to set it in one environment, change environments, and then it not work. I've had that with an AR pattern rifle before, so I'm just gun shy about it. Also, this is a fairly new carbine, so I wanted to make sure it was broken in and running good before we really tried to wean it out too much. So I have it dialed down pretty well for match ammunition, which makes the cheap practice ammunition 55 grain stuff is a little gassier. If you shoot it suppressed, that's even gassier. So I could probably tune it down just a little bit more than what I have now, but it's tuned out pretty sweet, and you can adjust it to taste right out the box. Normally that's something that you would have to add. It comes pre-installed, ready to go. Action work on these, exactly what you would expect for a rifle of this price point. Essentially, the Dissident guys, they trued this thing all up so it cycles super smooth, like I would expect. That is definitely worth the investment. Comes with an ALG trigger in it, ALG AK trigger, which is not going to be comparable to what you get on an AR-15. It is pretty soft. It rolls pretty smooth. I wouldn't say it's crisp, but I don't know that AK triggers are going to be. But it rolls through pretty smooth. I almost say it feels kind of like a CZ trigger. Honestly, a CZ Shadow trigger would be the most comparable thing off the top of my head that I would compare it to. So it comes with a very good trigger, very good tuned trigger. And then comes with their buttstock on the back. Well, actually, I configured it with the buttstock. It comes with a bunch of options, but for what I wanted to do with it, especially using it with a scope, I wanted the Dissident adjustable stock on the back here. Their version of, I believe, an XLR stock, but I wanted adjustable length of pull and comb. I pretty much have this thing all the way out, and it's still a little bit short for me, which is okay. But I can get the perfect position on the comb height that I wanted, which is what's really important to me. So that is kind of how I configured this one. And then the other thing that's pretty cool on them is their magazine well system. So they have this guard in here, all right, to help you reload. It's biased for which hand you are, so this is probably one of the few in existence for left-handed people. But essentially similar to a magwell in a pistol or something else, you kind of have a guard, so you can kind of just throw it up there and rock it down and you get it. I put exactly no time into dry firing AK stuff, and for purposes of the match, I got it pretty good. Now I'm looking like a chump here on video, but you can hit it pretty easy, and I like it a lot. And then by your index finger here, it actually launches it out of there. So not only is it easy to get it in, but when you hit the reload, the thing falls free, which is really what attracts me to this for PCSL competition. Like I say, if you have timed reloads, both getting the ejecto feature where it kind of kicks them out, and kind of a big landing pad for getting them in there, I feel like I can hit these reloads smoother and more intuitively than AR-15 reloads, and get them right the first time. All right, not short insert them with an AR-15. When you stick them in there, you don't get them in all the way. So for a reload intensive sport, I think this might be an interesting option. But probably the most unique and interesting feature of the Defector is the combination of the magwell and their magazine ejector system. I think that's pretty cool, and that's why you would get one of these. This is probably one of the more premium AKs as far as race ready, and then it's race ready on the mags as well. Like I say, I got it in the 5.56 version. So essentially what you're getting, what they'll sell you is quarter circle 10 magazines, and then they have a modified follower in them. I don't know that they modify these at Dissident or they buy them this way. I kind of think they buy them this way. But if you have a pile of 545 mags, these are different from what they tell me. But it is a 545 body, essentially. I think quarter circle 10 sells it that way because I see that they marked it 556. All right, so, but essentially very similar to a 545 AK-74 pattern magazine. Follower is different to use 556 ammunition. And so all my experience with these magazines has been pretty good. I have a limited experience level on them. I have a bunch of them, and I have not found a bad one yet. They did send me one with a +5 extension on it, made by a I'm gonna butcher that name there, but maybe you can see AMRU Designs. Not quite sure how you say that, but +5 extension on here. I use this one a lot at the match that I just shot, and I like these a lot. All right, so some combination of 30s, 35s. This is kind of your options on magazines. I don't know of any big sticks or drums that Dissident would stake their reputation on. So these are what I have for magazines, and they all have worked pretty well. Ammunition wise, what have I tried? Federal Gold Medal, Hornady Tap. I think I tried some Barnes 77s grain as well. All that runs good. 55 grain stuff from various manufacturers. All of it's been pretty decent and on par with performance I would expect out of an AR-15. But if you're looking at getting into one of these, that's kind of what I have and what I've experienced with. Shooting experience wise, I would say it's because I have KL-12s too, all right? I shot open in 3-gun for a while with KL-12s, and I would say the reason I shot open was to shoot a Vepr, all right, a KL-12, and I really like those. I would say this is everything I liked about the Vepr experience in carbine. All right, so everything I like shooting, if you like shooting your KL-12, you'll love this thing. All right, so it is pretty much the same as a Vepr 12 experience in carbine form. It cycles super smooth. When you really get rocking and rolling with it, like the sensation is very similar to a KL-12. Not as dynamic as shooting a 12 gauge, because the projectiles are way smaller, but very similar in fact. Now, between an AR and a AK, I would say this one feels a bit more active than an AR. Like, it doesn't, there's less moving parts in an AR, so when they cycle, there's just less happening. So I think an AR probably feels smoother. When I watch videos, when I watch match video of me shooting this thing though, at the gun, it feels kind of violent, like it's moving around a lot. But on the video, you can see the gun just kind of hangs out there. So you can hear and you can feel this thing going back and forth, but the gun itself shoots very flat. And I think that is a lot to do with the attention to detail they do in assembling these things. And then when you add on getting the gas setting correctly, this thing shoots super smooth. And I think it could definitely be tuned on par with the highest performance AR-15s. But if you're looking for a race AK, that's an overview of the Defector 5.56 free floated handguard as well. So you can use, I have a Picatinny rail on here to use a bipod, use that to great success. Comes with integrated sling mounts, which also work good. At this match, we did have to use slings. I wish there was one out here, but but that's just me. That's pretty nitpicky. You obviously could M-lock one out there if you wanted to, but just playing around with this thing, pretty sweet. Also you got integrated sling mounts on the back here, and then at the castle nut as well, you have another sling mount point. But pretty sweet option if you're looking for a premium race AK. Defector 5.56 is what you want to get. This one, I said, finish wise, I wanted something kind of Rhodesian, and this is what they came up with. So that is my Defector 5.56. If you have any questions on these things, shoot them down below, and if it's meaty enough, maybe we'll make another video. But that's my thoughts on Defector 5.56 overview wise. And yeah, if you're interested, pick one up, or if you have any questions, like I said, leave them and we'll get them answered. See you next time, guys.